Hey, what's up everyone? Alex here. So back with one more video around the World Othello Championship 2024. This is round 9. So at this point, after having 8 rounds, I was actually on 6 out of 8 wins. And considering that my position was actually in a place where I only lost to two players who are actually semifinals contenders in the form of Song Yan from China and Kurita Seiya from Japan, who eventually won the world title. I was actually not in too bad a shape and kind of still having hopes of entering the semifinals myself if I kept the losses to a minimum. So over here I was faced with Chang from Taiwan. I did want to give a quick background about Chang he's a relatively newer player compared to me, of course, but at the same time he was quick to kind of show his playing ability. When he first joined in 2016, he actually got 9 wins and he was ranked, I think, 7th place. And when he got into 2019 WOC, he actually placed a 5th, and he even have a playoff match to actually fight for a semi-final spot. So both, I think, with 9 or 9.5 wins. So he's an amazing player who is able to prepare well. I think I knew that, going into this tournament, he wouldn't be an easy opponent, as he has a very well prepared and researched book lines. And at the same time, I think for this tournament, maybe he did have a slight disadvantage, was that I think recently he's been busy and it's been hard for him to kind of prepare. So I did want to play him for a very long time now. And given that, I've now have the opportunity to play him, I was really excited to actually have a game with him. So I think given that he's Taiwanese and he's Chinese speaking player, I did want to also kind of do the review in Chinese. So opposed to kind of review in English, I'll also kind of carry on in Chinese. So over here, we start off with him playing black and me playing white. So in fact, I was kind of relieved in the sense that I know that his white diagonal is an amazing game. So I really wanted to avoid that if I could. So I was drawn as white and he was black. So I thought that was kind of lucky for me in a way. So I didn't really have to face his white diagonal opening. So he played black and he start off with e6, and I thought about it for some time, and I decided to kind of just go with perpendicular. And at that moment when I decided to play perpendicular, I actually kind of forgot what he plays against perpendicular right after I just played the move. Then I remembered when he played d3 in the kind of cat lead up opening. I then remembered that actually his strength is in the Italian opening. So I just played the standard book, and I was kind of anticipating f5 to happen. And that is a very strong opening. So I think after the match, he did tell me that the reason why he didn't play f5 was he thought that I would have probably prepared pretty deeply for Italian opening, so he didn't really want to give me what I wanted. So interesting. So yeah. So in the end, he decided to play c3, which is a standard kind of tiger book, and followed by e3 and c2. So over here, I was actually surprised that he played b4, but kind of looking back on the games, I realized that he actually played this against Song Yan. So I would say that there is some preparation from his point of view for this opening. Then thereafter, I just played the standard book response to f3. I know that this opening can be pretty tricky because there is quite a lot of tempo exchanges that white could miss. So black plays to c6, and again, over here, he's still well in his book. And I know the kind of standard sequence is kind of f5 and c1 or something like that, and thereafter it will be put in a weird position whereby even though white has a slight advantage, but black has a lot easier to play moves. So this is an interesting opening in case you wanted to learn something different. So instead of giving him what he wanted with kind of like a f5 c1 continuation, I thought I'll just kind of break the trend to c1 and just go with like b5. And to just kind of cut away the c4 disc and surprise him a little, because I mean, in a way, that's kind of how you derive variations to some extent. If you play a low cost move like flipping one disc and at the same time not giving him what he usually wants, that could be a way to kind of variate within an opening, even without kind of consulting the software. You would know that it wouldn't be too far off. It probably takes up the -4 or -6 disadvantage. So thereafter, he quickly played d2. So in his kind of quick response, I then kind of realized that, oh no, he's still in book. Then I could just only play pretty safe moves, just kind of jump into c5, centralize, and he played b3 pretty quickly. So over here I was a bit in a dilemma because I know that if I did c1 and he could do either a4 or a6, and then I would then have to kind of worry about trying to regroup at e2. But I think I didn't really have much of a choice unless I wanted to play something like e2 immediately, and then that would give him c1 and d1 consecutively. That's something that I probably wanted to avoid. But then again, on hindsight, it does seem like it's still fine if I did e2, and if he went to c1, I would actually still have kind of a4 open up because the c2 disc is now removed. So yeah, on hindsight, it didn't seem too bad, but I went with c1, and then I was kind of surprised to see that he played a6, because as opposed to a6, I would think that a4 might be better in a way that I wouldn't be able to immediately re-establish the access to e2 in a clean way. But him playing a6 kind of gives me a quick chance through a4 to kind of re-establish c4 to target e2. So that's what I did. And thereafter, I think he made a mistake over here. The typical kind of response when you see such a edge setup is to give away the edge here, or if he does give away, then you can take it and then you would have control of this diagonal. So the typical response is this way, and then he doesn't have access to this, so he probably wouldn't want this, but he could have easily done a2 and control the temporary control on the B column, and that would put white on the back foot because white would basically have a need to kind of try to look for the access. So this is something that he missed greatly, and you know, as a result, I was kind of lucky to get away with that. Yeah, so because of that, he went with e1. So I think once he went to e1, then I think there was a slight advantage on my end, just kind of feed the edge and attack the edge instead. So he was kind of put in a position. So I guess being a diagonal player himself, I think he tends to want to grab edges to some extent. But because of his miss on the tempo, suddenly it becomes me who's controlling this mini diagonal between b6 to f2 squares. Then it's him kind of trying to grapple with trying to look for the access to kind of re-centralize. So I was then kind of in an advantage controlling this diagonal with a nice kind of poison move placed at f2 against g3. So g3 would be fairly poisoned now, and now his only choice is to kind of do a g5, hoping for a clean cut to e3, retargeting a b6 again for a centralizing move. And this time I thought that, hey, instead of kind of playing to the right, I thought I'll just kind of poison move since I wouldn't be able to kind of prevent this. So the next approach to either take it or poison it. So I thought poisoning it would mean c7, and with the mind that even if he goes in here, I'll still have a clean move here. And maybe like this, and instead of playing just g4 continuation, feed off the unbalanced edge, and I'll still be able to kind of continue. Perhaps potentially, or if he takes it, and I could just simply give away this one immediately, and it could turn out like this, and I'll still be in a good position, I think. So over here, I did play this move with the thought that, you know, he would make it, you know, maybe he might fall into trap, but I think he played g4 quite beautifully, giving me a slight dilemma in terms of where to put, because right now I think the standard response is to just play f1, g1, just close it out, and then go for d7. But the problem with that is that if you do this, then he gets this, and then any move that I try to kind of play within my boundaries basically gives him a quiet move. And then thereafter, he seems to be edge creeping me a lot, and I'll kind of struggle to find the access. Maybe I could do this to find the access, but it did seem that he would be creeping too much, and I was kind of afraid that his edge play was too strong. So I didn't really do that. Instead, I think I decided to take the edge myself, thinking that, you know, maybe if he does this, it's still fine. I'll play this, and I'll still have kind of the control of this mini diagonal between a3 and e7. And then even if he jumps in over here, it's perfectly fine for me to do something like this, and it would turn out fine for me, given that he's poisoned himself. So that was my initial thoughts. But interestingly enough, he didn't take it. He thought that would be too much poison, so he just kind of re-established his edge to f1, cleaning up the disc there. So over here, I then played f5 because it's a disc in the center 16. I think usually the center 16 doesn't get filled this late unless it's a really kind of edge play based game. The concern here was if I played this and he played if I played d7 to kind of keep to my side of the board and he played a2, I would then kind of be struggling. If I played f5, he would just simply creep, and I'll still have to kind of break over to that side, and he would still have a couple of clean moves here. And if I played this, he would simply do this, and I'll still kind of have to break there. And I did feel that it was a slight disadvantage for me to kind of re-establish. But so at the end, I decided to go with f5, and then he kind of played g6 just to force me on this side. And again, I was struggling whether should I play g3, but I thought it'd be too early to play it. I thought I'll just break this shape first, kind of poison this f6 move first, and see his response. So I think he responded really well with e8, and then thereafter, if I cleared out, he was basically, it was kind of like a tug of war. He was forcing me to try to clear out this so that he can have a clean move. So it was very apparent what he was trying to do, but at the same time, it was difficult to kind of struggle on whether I should take g3 or not, or even maybe g2. Or I was even looking at h4. So he did kind of give me quite a bit of emotional struggle over here in terms of trying to decide. I think usually when I play against him, I do get that kind of sense. So finally, I decided to take g3 because I thought it was time, and I wasn't susceptible to kind of stoner traps at the same time. So thereafter, he played this move, which is pretty strange to me because it does give me d8 to play, which is a kind of a poison move. Yeah, but I thought he probably calculated this move, I guess, and then he would threaten this. So even if I approach this, it would be difficult for me. So I think that was his. So his ability to kind of calculate the moves and predict in advance is pretty strong. So yeah, I think that probably justifies. So the game went on like that. So over here, I think he was kind of trying to put me in a tough position to go to e7 or f6. But at the same time, I think he kind of forgot that I do have f8 as a quiet move, given that this is an empty square. And if I went in and he populated this, I'll still have a nice clean interior move. And then thereafter, I'll probably have enough moves to kind of close out the game. So how the game went was he went to play h4 to kind of wait for me to play into this area. So over here, I decided to kind of calculate the moves. If I did this, and then he would then have a dilemma, because if he went in this, I'll still be able to kind of control this diagonal. Even if he did this, I'll still be kind of safe to kind of get this edge, this wedge against the corner, and I'll still be able to win the game fairly easily. So that's what I felt at the point. So I definitely felt I was leading at this point and in control. So thereafter, the game did kind of continue that way, but instead of allowing me to kind of take diagonal control, he took control of the diagonal first and then pressed on. But over here, it then became too apparent that I had a strong tempo lead, and all I needed to do was to just cut this main diagonal, and the only move that I had to kind of cleanly do that is just h5 and grab the e5 disc. So, and to make things worse for him, he didn't have any access between this mini diagonal over here between h3 and c8. So he did have to play something like x square. So from this point on, I did feel that it was quite an easy wrap up for me. I just needed to kind of be firm and stable, and parity was on my side. So I did feel fairly certain of my victory over here. So it's just about an end game kind of sweep. So I think that resulted in quite a easy, straightforward end game for me. So I think with Chang Chun's strength is really about his research and his openings and his mid game. So yeah, in terms of trying to complicate end games, I guess he's not as strong as compared to other players. So every player has different styles. There are players who are not so strong in the opening research and the opening preparation and mid game preparation, but at the same time, they can make end games really, really tricky. So now that I've covered this analysis in English, I did want to kind of just cut over quickly to Chinese. 那我现在先用中文来解说，因为这个是我台湾要好的朋友，俊逸跟我一起下的一个棋盘，所以我想要说，让台湾的朋友也大概了解一下我自己在下这盘棋的那种感受跟思维模式。那现在就来说一下中文的，所以在棋盘就在这盘棋开始之前，我就 有点半期待半畏惧，就是对到俊逸，因为俊逸是就2016年跟2019年就表现得非常好，取得了9分9分半以上的成绩，那他也取得了第7名跟第5名所以他的确是让人畏惧的一个选手，所以但是我又同时很喜欢对强者，所以是感到非常开心能够对到他的那。而且他人又长得很帅，然后又像个笑面佛，每次看到他我都感觉心情好好啊。那现在就来说一下因为一般我了解他的棋就是斜线开局一般都非常的强，所以我也会有点畏惧那个斜线的开局，所以能够戳中白色对他的话，那还好吧。所以黑色下了16，那我自己就决定下一个 perpendicular 的开局来对付他然后来对应他的那个开局。然后后来我没有想到他没有下他原本平时会下的一个 Italian 的开局，所以他下了一个就是正常的一个 Tiger 的一个开局。然后后来他就去了那个之前我看到他在早几轮的对到宋妍的开局就是也用这个开局，所以他可能应该是研究了这个开局，然后也准备了好这个开局，所以在这边一般的情况来说应该是 F5 然后 C1， 然后我就觉得据我对这个开局的了解，就是说这样下应该会很危险因为一般我觉得好像这样一旦错失了那个 tempo 来过来 F6 的情况下，那如果这样组成的话，那黑色还会下进 D2， 那我就会觉得很难下。那黑色也会控制这个小斜线，也会控制这个小斜线，然后可能会被逼进入一个很比较难抵挡的一个情势。所以我觉得有点害怕这样，所以我就决定下一个 B5 就做一点其他的一个选择。但是我没有想到俊逸就很快的下了 D2， 那显然他开局有做足一些准备，所以就开始会有点害怕。然后下到这里我就觉得有点棘手了，就开始有点紧张，所以这里应该一般都是 C1 或者 E2 这样的一个选择，因为 C1 的话就可以等待他切手这里，或者是他取 A4， 就是基本上取掉 B5 的那一子，所以他不能，那就可以阻止我重组。那这里的话，1-2也是可能一个选择吧。如果他1-2的话，那他可能也可以选这两个选择，或者是这个。那到这里为止，我就觉得，我下了这里之后，我看到他下 A6，我就觉得还好，就有一个比较直接的一个抵挡的方案，那我就直接切手就可以重组在1-2。但是黑棋俊逸就在这里下了1-1，那这里我觉得可能一般上来讲下边然后这边隔开一步，你就可以很容易的就这样为那个步数，所以我也直接放了进去。然后之后呢，我还发觉到就是我还有控这个小斜线，所以如果黑色打在这里，我也可以 F2，然后黑色如果打在 A3，我也可以 B6，这样很好的这个控制一个小斜线。然后导致黑色就必须多花费几步来出来，然后黑色就打了这里之后就下了一个 G5， 就得到E3就可以重组。那这里我就觉得也没有什么机会可以去消掉对手，那我就干脆就直接放一个 poison 的一个状态，就直接放 C7。然后他打了一个边缘的一步，那显然俊逸对边缘的下法非常的厉害，所以我也会有点害怕，因为他有点算是大概在景气的一个情况，然后就把我压缩在边缘了。那这里我就觉得与其就下在 F1 的情况下这样走的话，那我倒不如就让它形成5边的一个，所以我先放在这里可能会要好一些。那这里连续下了之后，我就觉得现在就已经很明显，就是一个黑边的结界对一个白边的结界，所以只看谁可以比较有技巧性的把对手拉入自己的那个边界，然后取得角落，然后从那边发展，从而获得胜利。那我觉得这样的话一般都会先考虑可能 D7 吧，但是我会比较害怕 D7 A2 的情况，那变成 一种情况就是说我没有一个很明显的一个对应方法，因为如果这样下，他也可能这样下，但是他也可能这样下，都会导致我比较困难落子，而且我下了 D7 之后，最主要是说他不大可能会消掉我的 D7 的那手，那这里就全部中毒，然后他下了 A1 也把我 F7 的那步也消掉了，所以与其先下 D7， 我倒不如直接下在那个 F5。那他比较有可能说，如果他打在这里的话，那还好，我还可以打进这里。但是如果他打在G6，然后把 F5 取掉，那我之后的 D7 其实还是说比较干净利落一点的一步，所以还好。所以就这样决定，先下入中间16个格，一般都会可能有些就是比较好的一个优势。然后白棋在这边，我就觉得应该打乱这一手，因为我也没办法去阻止。我也觉得 G3， 我在这里就觉得 G3 就可能会比较勉强，所以就在这里下了一个 F7， 就扰乱他一下。然后后来我没有想到的是，俊逸就直接下1-8，那这里就会感觉上很害怕取掉这个 D6 的这子，让他从而间拿到 F6， 所以基本上俊逸很明显就是他要把我逼迫，然后让我取掉 D6， 好让他进 F6。所以俊逸我觉得他的下法最有魅力就是他可以硬逼你进，然后就会取得一个很强势的一个局势，所以他一般都表现得非常好，所以这个也是我值得去学习的一点。那后来这里就被逼，所以就下了 G3， 说应该先必须取掉一些白子，而且这边也不怕说他攻角，所以我觉得还好。然后之后他就这样放了一个 D7， 那我觉得会开始有点害怕，说这个局势应该怎么走。但是后来我想想，可能我还是有 F8， 所以这个其实还处于一点优势。还是可以控制局面，而且因为当黑棋入了 B6 之后 ，B2 也就是大概中毒了，那我下在这里的话，其实还好，我也想过这样，但是因为我控制这个小斜线的话，其实还好，那基本上在这里军力也没有什么子，只要我下在可能一个 H6 这样，那我就基本上就已经控制整个局面，拿回取得 F3 就直接站脚，然后就从角落就这样发动攻势。所以我觉得还好，那看了这个顺序之后，我就觉得应该还可以，所以就走了一下。但是没有想到说俊逸就与其下在F6，就先下在H4，这个应该是为了提高我犯错的机会，但是我觉得也没什么差别，因为我下在E7的话，它还是进入F6，其实感觉没差，那还是可以促成这个斜线的控制。那在这里觉得好像已经控制了，我已经控制局面了，所以并没有担心我。然后之后君逸也下了一个A3 来控制这个大斜线，所以我觉得这个应该是他最后的一个赌注，来让我犯错。但是我觉得还是会在这盘棋可能就他运气比较不好，就这个局面就比较对我来说比较直接，因为就直接下了 H5 就可以取得E5的位置，所以我觉得。问题应该是比较在于那个开局的方面的问题，所以这里之后尾盘收尾应该是很直接，因为我还控制这个小斜线，所以我就觉得还好，我还是可以直接进 G7， 那直接舍弃掉角落，然后夹在 C8 的话，那还是可以直接继续利用 parity 就可以完结的一个，我还是可以这样利用 parity， 那就完结了，所以我也没有那么担心，就下在 G7 这个位置上。那他很标准的下了 H6， 就取得这个角落的那个攻击点，然后我就下了 H3， 就是基本上很直接的就把整个盘面就完成了，就直接取角，然后用 parity 就想要下在 H7 让它进角，然后我就下 parity 就好了。那就是奇有数就很直接的就完成这盘棋了，所以这边下来我还觉得就还蛮庆幸说终于能够对到君逸我的好朋友，然后一方面也觉得很侥幸能够获得优胜，所以很期待下次还可以再继续对到他。那么现在我就说回中文说回英文，然后就大概说一下这一点。 So yeah, that's basically my analysis in Mandarin Chinese, and hopefully it didn't turn out too bad for all Chinese speaking friends. And thank you very much for joining me in this round. And I feel really very fortunate to play Chang from Taiwan for this World of Title Championship. I was really looking forward to it, and it turned out to be a great game. And I really kind of turned out lucky out of this, and I was really glad to kind of pull off the win. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next round at round 10. Goodbye.